Hey everyone, what's up? It's your boy Donnie here, and today I'll be doing something special for you guys. I will be going over the play-by-play of the King of Catan Premier League Season 17 final, where I played against Noisepond, Swood, and Harry. This is the medal that I received for my achievements. I will be using Two Sheets Replay feature to go through the decisions in the game, possible misplays, and optimizations. If you would like to watch a stream of this game was streamed by David George, the co-founder of Two Sheep, and a link to his stream will be in the description below. Before I get into the game, I'd like to give a brief intro of each of these players. First up, we got Noisepond, who is a recent USA National semifinalist and won an incredible 3 out of his 4 preliminary games against some of the toughest matchups possible, including fellow King of Catan Premier League competitors. Last season, Noisepond was in the Proven Competitors League and won 5 out of his 7 games there to make it into the Premier League this season. Next up, we have Swood, who is a Canadian Nationals finalist and one of the most dedicated and studious players in the online Catan scene. I played Swood in last season's Premier League finals, where he led by 9-3-3-3 at one point in the game, and I had to work together with 2 other top players, Rayman and Falcao, to get back into the game, where Falcao ultimately ended up victorious. For this final, Swood later told me that he spent hours studying all 3 of our gameplays to get that few extra % chance at winning the Premier League final this time around. Last but certainly not least, we have Harry, who is one of the best players from the UK. Harry placed 6th in this league, which meant he had to play an extra game with ranks 4 through 7, where he won against one of last season's finalists and a player with the most achievements in online Catan, Rayman, to get here. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the game. Swood is going first and chooses the 694, pointing down to the 6331 port. I think this is objectively the correct pick for first on this board. It's 12 pips of production, and there's at minimum 5 spots where you can get wheat on this board. First, either the 695 or 5910. Second, the 548. Third, either one of these 6311s. Fourth, the 6912 or 61112. And last but not least, the 8331 port. This means that it's very hard for the rest of the players to lock Swood out of wheat without sacrificing their own setup, and the 694 guarantees Swood a decent to strong or sheep game. In addition, with a coastal desert and abundance of spots in the middle of the board, Swood is basically guaranteed that no one will take the 6331 port spot from him with a placement. Next up, we got Noisepond in second, and he picks the 8510, pointing down to the sheep port. I also really like this pick for a similar reason. He is guaranteed wheat on the way back, and it also usually comes with wood. Noise is looking at one of the 6311s as his potential spot on the way back, giving him a very balanced setup. Pointing down also makes sense, since the 843 likely goes as a second initial placement, meaning if either 4th or 3rd picks it, they'll have a starting road, giving them a higher chance to take the 831 port, so Noise decides not to contest for it. However, Harry as 3rd actually does take the 843, pointing left towards the 2 ports. Objectively, I don't agree with this pick. First, it is only 10 pips of production, while there are spots with higher production like the 695 or 5910 and the 548 on the board. The wood port wouldn't be helpful, since wood is the rarest resource on this board, with 9 pips in total, and the 8 brick lightly gets blocked a lot at the beginning of the game by the other 2 players. If Harry wanted a wood brick setup, given that 1st and 2nd are already geared up for Ori Sheep, the 9510 would have been a better spot, since it offers an extra pip of production and a slightly better brick port compared to the wood port. If I was in Harry's position, I would have chosen the 5910. I would be happy with any of these 3 spots on the way back, the 843, 458, or 10911. If Donnie leaves me the 843, I'll dominate more than half the brick and wood productions from the get-go, giving me a huge advantage on securing spots and building roads. If Donnie leaves me the 458, I can play an effective side-by-side game with an easy connect between the 9510 and the 5-4-8. If Donnie leaves me the 10-9-11, I would get a strong start starting with 2 ores and the most rare wood. As Donnie going forth, I was happy Harry took the 8-4-3 since this gave me a choice between playing Orwe Sheep or Road. I could take the 5-4-8 and pair it up with either the 10-9-11 for a strong Orwe Sheep game or the 9-5-10 for a side-by-side road game. I chose the 9-5-10 for 2 reasons. The first is that Swood will also likely have a double ore, double wheat, single sheep, or wheat sheep setup if I take the 10-9-11, making us direct competition. However, Swood with the 8-3 gets the advantage of starting off with a 3-1 port, which I believe is valued a lot more than extra 11 wood. Swiss ore sheep ratios are 9 pips of ore, 7 pips of wheat, and 3 pips of sheep. My ore sheep ratio would be 7 pips of ore, 9 pips of wheat, and 3 pips of sheep. If an ore sheep player dream is to build a city and buy 2 devs on a big turn, they'll need 5 ores, 4 wheats, and 2 sheep. Notice that you need slightly more ore than wheat. Swiss ore sheep setup gives exactly that, while mine is reversed, so I believe in the long run, Swood would likely buy 1 to 2 more devs than me and produce slightly more than me, meaning I'll need good dev luck to win, while Swood could likely win with average dev luck. The second reason is that I want the 8-3-3-1 port to be open for me. If I go on the 10-9-11, Harry would likely take the 9-5-10 on the way back, and Noise will likely take the inner 6-3-11 and point down to the 10-9-11. This means Wood would get to choose between the 6-9-12 and the 8-3. And while the 6-9-12 has higher production, starting off with 2 bricks will clog your hand from the start, and a block by me on the 6-way will shut down his game. I think if these were the 2 options, Swood would go for the 8-3, which severely hurts my game, as I'll now need 2 rows to plow Swood to the 6-3-3-1 port to get a port, or else my only sell spot will likely be the 9-2, which in my opinion is not enough for a secondary or resheep setup. By taking the 9-5-10, it opens up the possibility of Harry taking the 10-9-11 as his second pick, and even if that doesn't happen, I will be playing a setup where I have a competitive advantage on road, rather than a second-rate or resheep setup. On the way back, Harry does take the 10-9-11. I think Harry did this because he saw there was an abundance of wheat on the board, so starting off with 2 ores, even though he doesn't have wheat, will likely still lead to an early city since he will likely be able to trade for the 2 wheat. However, I don't like the setup because after the initial city and the easy wheat trades vanish, the ores will likely clog your hand and you will turn into a robber target by the other 3 players, all of whom will likely be lacking an ore, especially Donnie. When I saw Harry take this position, I knew immediately I'll trade him 2 wheat for around 3 cards to get value and give Harry an early city, then use the early city as a reason to rob him and steal his ore. What Harry should have done is take the inner 6-3-11 and point down to the 10-9-11. If you look at Noise and Swood's setups, they cannot take the 10-9-11 as their second pick without sacrificing their own game. Starting with 2 rare woods, you have a huge advantage over Noise of getting the 10-9-11 before Noise gets the 10-9. In addition, taking this would force Noise to choose between a low-producing 6-11-12 to get on the rare wood and race you to the 10-9, the 6-9-12 where he sacrifices the rare wood for production but will be constantly clogged with brick, or the 8-3-3-1 port where he will deny Swood a strong out and Donnie a strong road settle, and Noise himself will play a difficult or resheep game with low ore. I believe if Harry chose the inner 6-3-11, he would likely give Noise and Donnie difficult games since Noise has no good second spot and Donnie loses the 8-3 to either Noise or Swood, while Harry himself has a strong game as long as he gets the 10-9-11. With 2 starting woods, that is a risk that I'll be willing to take. Noise chooses the outer 6-3-11 coming back, and I have mixed feelings about this. He chose the outer spot, giving Swood the extremely strong 6-5-11 with the intention of getting a road settle onto another high production 3 hex spot on the 6-9-12. This is very much within Noise's style of gameplay, where he likes to go for as much numbers as possible and tends to play more road than army, so getting an inner 6-3-11 to 6-9-12 is within my own expectations with how he'll play. However, if Noise chose the inner 6-3-11, there's a chance Wood takes the 8-3-3-1 port over the 6-9-12 for the reasons I've mentioned before. Swood doesn't need the brick, and a block on a 6 wheat will shut his Orwe sheep game. Notably, during Noise's placement, he did try to talk to Swood and get information out of him on which of the two spots Swood would prefer, but Swood correctly didn't give any information since this would only help Noise and not himself. If I was in Noise's position, I think I would choose the inner 6-3-11 pointing up and let Swood decide. I can try to convince Wood to take the 8-3-3-1 port with the two reasons I've stated, and if all else fails and Swood does take the 6-9-12, I can always build two roads to the 4-11 later on to get better utility out of the sheep port and pick up more rare wood. And if Swood takes 8-3-3-1 port, it'll also hurt Donnie's game as well. Last but certainly not least, Swood gets the insane 6-5-11. An 8th pick with 11 pips of production, which is more than Harry's 3rd pick on an 8-4-3 with 10 pips of production, is basically unheard of. Swood has by all measures an overpowered setup if I've ever seen one. With a total of 9 pips of ore and 9 pips of wheat along with coordinated 6s, it would be no surprise if Swood gets 2 cities up before any other player even gets a point down. From the start of the game, it needs to be a 3v1 against Swood for the other players to even have a chance. Here is where I made a very controversial move that a lot of viewers on David's stream hated. During Swood's placement, he was worried about me plowing the 6-3-3-1 port and possibly getting help from Noise and Harry to do so. This is a very rightful fear, since if Swood loses that spot, he may be stuck not being able to get a settlement for the rest of the game, and no matter how strong of an Orwe sheep setup you have, that means you need to get army and 4 victory points to win, which the 4 victory points part is just pure luck. However, I gave Swood the promise that I will not take the 6-3 away from him for nothing in return. The deal was so good for Swood, he didn't even believe it, but little did he know, I was planning to hold up my end of this free deal. Now, why in the world would I do that? Isn't that just going to result in all of us losing to Swood? Well, not exactly. There are actually 2 ways to stop a strong Orwe sheep setup, and that is either by taking away their settlement spots, or the less common way, by buying early development cards and either taking away knights for army or victory points from the deck. The second option does require a bit of luck, but there are 4 main reasons I picked this option. First, Swood's initial Orwe sheep ratio is 9 pips of ore, 9 pips of wheat, and only 3 pips of sheep. This means that Swood is heavily incentivized and very likely to focus on building 2 cities first, and if he does trade or steal, he'll likely look for brick and wood instead of sheep because he doesn't entirely trust me and want to defend the 6-3 spot. However, if I get an early plow on a 6-3, Swood will likely then trade for sheep to dev as much as possible. If Swood is trading for brick and wood, I can provide some of that and possibly get an ore in return. But if he is trading for sheep, well, I share the 4 sheep with him, so he would be trading with Noise or Harry instead. Second, on this board, all players are pretty incentivized to buy development cards. One main reason is because of how game-changing getting a Monopoly is. As you can see, there's a total of 12 pips of ore and 16 pips of wheat on this board. Keep in mind that the max pips of ore you can have is 14 and wheat is 18, so this is about the most ore and wheat any board can get. In addition, you have Donnie, who has loads of wheat but no ore, and Harry, who has loads of ore but no wheat. A Monopoly can literally be the difference of 2 cities plus 2 development cards for both me and Harry. With incentives like this to buy development cards, I think it's easier to deny Swood of either enough knights to take army or other lucrative devs rather than plow his 6-3 and give him most of the dev deck since all he can do afterwards is dev.